I fix GPS systems every day, until one road made me question reality. The call came in at 2:13 a.m. while I was halfway through a routine maintenance shift. I worked for the state transportation department, which meant my nights were usually spent updating navigation units, repairing signal relays, and dealing with equipment that had been abused by weather, truck drivers, or both. Nothing about the job was supposed to be mysterious. Computers fail, maps corrupt, satellites drift. You fix the problem and move on. That was the rule. The dispatcher sounded unusually tense when she patched the call through. "We've got another Phantom Road report," she said. I almost laughed. Phantom roads were usually data errors, old county routes that still existed in outdated map files or private logging roads that accidentally appeared on public systems. "Location?" I asked. "Silence." "Then that's the problem." According to the report, multiple state GPS units had begun displaying a road in a rural area outside Black Hollow. Drivers following the route eventually lost signal and called for assistance. The strange part was that the coordinates attached to the road didn't exist in any official database. Not county records, not state records, not federal records. My supervisor muttered something about another software bug and sent me to investigate. By 3:00 a.m., I was driving through empty farmland under a moonless sky. The state-issued navigation unit mounted beside me showed a thin gray line branching off Highway 17. County Road 96. The problem was that County Road 96 had never existed. I knew because I'd checked before leaving the office. The county numbering system jumped from 95 to 97. No missing records. No deleted route. Nothing. As I approached the marked turnoff, the GPS chimed. "Turn right in 200 feet." I slowed the truck. Headlights swept across the roadside. There was no road. Just a barbed wire fence and a field of dead grass stretching into darkness. The GPS zoomed in automatically. The road became clearer on the screen. Paved, curving northeast through the fields. My headlights illuminated empty ground. The device insisted I was sitting at an intersection. I stepped out of the truck and walked to the fence. Cold wind moved through the grass. No tire tracks. No gravel. No sign that a road had ever been there. Behind me, the GPS spoke again. "Continue on County Road 96 for 3.4 miles. I remember standing there, staring at a road that existed only on the screen, and feeling a small, irrational knot form in my stomach. Because software glitches don't usually give spoken directions to places that aren't real. And as I climbed back into the truck, I found myself thinking about something the dispatcher had said before hanging up. "This isn't the first report." That was the moment I realized I wasn't investigating a simple navigation error. I was investigating a pattern. I thought I'd seen every glitch until this one appeared. People hear state GPS technician and imagine something futuristic: satellites, advanced computers, secret government systems. The reality is a lot less impressive. Most of my job involved crawling around service trucks, replacing faulty receivers, updating map databases, and arguing with software designed sometime around the invention of dial-up internet. The state loved technology right up until it became time to replace it. We had navigation units older than some of the interns in the office. Half my workday was spent convincing aging hardware to cooperate long enough for us to patch another update into it. A typical shift started with a stack of maintenance tickets, incorrect speed limits, missing road signs, GPS units insisting a highway exit existed 3 miles from its actual location. Usually the problems were boring and predictable. Boring was good. Boring meant nobody was stranded in the middle of nowhere, because a navigation system decided a river was a shortcut. The office itself looked exactly how you'd expect a government technology department to look. Fluorescent lights, stained carpet, and enough filing cabinets to survive an apocalypse. My coworkers survived on bad coffee and sarcasm. One technician liked to say our equipment had two settings, broken and about to break. Another claimed the GPS units became self-aware every Tuesday just to make our lives difficult. We laughed because the alternative was admitting he might be right. Over the years, I'd encountered plenty of strange anomalies. Roads that appeared twice in the database. Bridges marked 50 feet from their actual location. Entire neighborhoods shifted a few hundred yards because someone entered the wrong coordinate during an update. We called them phantom alerts. Most were harmless. A phantom alert would trigger, we'd investigate, discover a clerical error, and close the ticket. The system wasn't perfect, but it was understandable. Every problem had a cause. Every cause had a fix. That belief kept the job simple. Then County Road 96 started appearing. The first report came 6 months before my midnight call. A delivery driver claimed his state-issued GPS directed him onto a road that wasn't there. The report was dismissed as user error. 2 weeks later, a maintenance crew reported the same thing. Different device, different driver, same non-existent road. Someone checked the database. No County Road 96, ticket closed. After that, the reports became strangely consistent. Always rural. Always late at night. Always involving state equipment rather than consumer GPS apps. The road would appear, provide directions, and then vanish from the device hours later. By the time technicians investigated, nothing remained except the original complaint. Management treated it like an embarrassing software bug. Internal memos referred to it as a temporary mapping artifact. One supervisor suggested drivers were misreading the screens. Another blamed a corrupted update package. None of the explanations accounted for the fact that the road kept returning. The same road. The same number. The same general area outside Black Hollow. I remember asking a senior technician whether anyone had actually solved the issue. He shrugged and said, "Can't solve a problem that disappears before you find it." Then he added something I didn't understand at the time. Some glitches don't want to be fixed. I assumed he was joking. Looking back, I'm not sure. The strangest part was how quickly people stopped talking about it. In any technical office, unusual problems usually become legends. Employees swap stories, exaggerate details, and compete to explain the mystery. County Road 96 never became that kind of story. Instead, conversations died whenever it came up. People changed subjects, closed tickets, moved on, as if ignoring the anomaly was easier than understanding it. I probably would have done the same if the dispatcher hadn't called me that night. But now I was parked beside a fence in the middle of nowhere, staring at a road that existed on my GPS and nowhere else. The screen continued displaying directions. The empty field continued displaying nothing. And for the first time in my career, I found myself wondering whether a navigation system could be leading me somewhere that wasn't supposed to exist. The device insisted there was a road, but I saw nothing. After checking the fence line twice, I climbed back into the truck and radioed dispatch. "I'm at the reported location," I said. "GPS is still showing County Road 96, no visible roadway." The dispatcher sounded tired. "Can you verify the coordinates?" I read them off the screen. A pause followed. "Those coordinates don't exist in the state database." That was the third time I'd heard that sentence that night, and somehow it was becoming less reassuring each time. I decided to follow procedure. If the map showed a route, I'd document it. I switched the GPS into diagnostic mode and began recording every change in the displayed path. The surrounding area looked completely ordinary. A narrow highway cut through miles of farmland. Telephone poles stretched into the darkness at regular intervals. A rusted mailbox leaned beside a gravel driveway half a mile away. Nothing about the landscape suggested hidden roads or secret construction projects. Then the GPS recalculated. The screen flashed once. Proceed on County Road 96 for 3.4 miles. The route line extended straight through the fence and across the field beyond it. I stared at the display. According to the device, I was sitting on a paved intersection with lane markings, shoulders, and a posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour. According to my headlights, I was facing dead grass and barbed wire. One of the maintenance workers who'd accompanied me leaned over from the passenger seat. "Maybe the road's just really shy," he said. I managed a weak laugh. Dark humor was easier than admitting I was unsettled. To test the signal, I drove slowly along the highway shoulder. The GPS continued insisting I was traveling on County Road 96. The route curved northeast through terrain that remained physically empty. Then I noticed the first anomaly. A road marker stood 50 yards ahead. I was certain it hadn't been there when I arrived. The sign was old, its reflective paint faded almost white. Instead of a county number, it displayed a symbol I didn't recognize, a circle crossed by 3 parallel lines. No state or county road used that designation. I stopped the truck and stepped out. The wind had died completely. The silence felt heavy. As I walked toward the sign, my flashlight caught movement in the field to my right. A shadow passed between patches of grass, too large for a dog, too low for a person. I swung the light toward it. Nothing, just empty ground. "See something?" the worker called. "Probably a deer," I answered, though I wasn't convinced. Up close, the marker looked even stranger. The metal was cold enough to sting my fingers despite the mild night air. The symbol had been carved into the surface rather than painted on it. Deep grooves cut through the rust. The GPS chimed again behind me. "Turn left in 100 feet. There was still no road. When I returned to the truck, the maintenance worker pointed toward the field. "You noticed that sign?" "Yeah. I don't remember seeing it before." Neither did I. We continued following the phantom route along the highway shoulder, documenting every instruction. The farther we went, the stranger the roadside became. Additional markers appeared at irregular intervals, each bearing the same carved symbol. One was partially buried in the grass as if it had been standing there for decades. Another leaned at an impossible angle without falling over. The GPS remained confident throughout. Its map displayed a perfectly maintained county road complete with intersections and mile markers. The physical world offered no supporting evidence. Around 3:40 a.m., the device announced, "You have arrived at your destination." We were parked beside an abandoned barn. No road. No buildings matching the map. Just the barn and an empty field stretching into darkness. Then my flashlight caught another sign mounted on the barn wall. The same symbol. And beneath it, scratched into the wood, were 3 words. Not Owen Maps. That was the moment the maintenance worker stopped joking. And it was the moment I stopped believing County Road 96 was a software problem. Everything I knew about maps became meaningless. I spent the rest of that morning buried in data. The transportation office kept historical GIS records going back decades, including construction permits, road surveys, bridge inspections, and satellite imagery from multiple federal agencies. If County Road 96 had ever existed, there would be a paper trail. There was. I checked county archives first. Nothing. No right-of-way acquisition. No paving contracts. No maintenance budgets. No abandoned roadway designation. Then I moved to satellite imagery. The fields outside Black Hollow looked exactly the same year after year. Crops changed. Fence lines shifted slightly. But there was never a road cutting through the area. Not in the most recent images. Not 10 years ago. Not 20. For a while, that almost reassured me. If the road had never existed physically, then the problem had to be digital. A corrupted map layer. A software error. Something explainable. Then I opened the diagnostic logs from other technicians. The first report came from a delivery driver 6 months earlier. His GPS recorded travel on County Road 96 for 3.1 miles. The physical odometer showed he had remained on Highway 17 the entire time. The second report came from a maintenance crew. Their unit logged a left turn onto County Road 96 at 1:42 a.m. Camera footage showed the truck driving straight past an empty field. The third report came from a state trooper. His navigation system displayed the Phantom Road for 17 minutes before rebooting itself. The road vanished immediately afterward. Different vehicles, different devices, different operators, the same road, the same location, the same contradiction between digital records and physical reality. I printed every log and spread them across my desk. The timestamps revealed another pattern. Every confirmed sighting occurred between midnight and 4 a.m. Never during daylight. Never during peak traffic hours. Always late enough that most people were asleep. My supervisor glanced at the paperwork and frowned. "Looks like a recurring firmware issue," he said. "Firmware doesn't carve symbols into road signs," I replied. That got his attention. I showed him the photographs from the field, the strange marker, the symbol, and the words scratched into the barn wall. He studied them for a long moment before sliding the photos back across the desk. Probably vandalism. The answer sounded rehearsed. I left his office with the uncomfortable feeling that he wanted the investigation closed more than he wanted it solved. That afternoon, I drove into Black Hollow to ask around. The town consisted of a gas station, a diner, and enough old houses to suggest it had once been larger. Most locals were polite until I mentioned County Road 96. Then conversations changed. One man at the diner stared into his coffee and said, "Road leads nowhere." Another told me drivers used to disappear out there. When I asked for names, he shrugged and said people stopped keeping track years ago. The waitress overheard us and quietly added, "Folks who follow it don't come back the same." I asked what that meant. She shook her head and walked away. The rumors sounded exactly like the kind of small-town folklore that grows around isolated places. Normally, I would have dismissed them immediately. But folklore doesn't usually match GPS diagnostic logs. By evening, my desk was covered with conflicting evidence. Official records insisted the road had never existed. State equipment insisted it did. Satellite imagery showed empty fields. Multiple navigation units recorded travel along a route that could not be physically driven. For the first time in my career, I couldn't decide which data set to trust. The maps were wrong or reality was. Both possibilities were terrifying. As the sun went down, I reviewed the logs one more time and noticed something I'd missed earlier. Every technician who documented the Phantom Road had eventually returned to the area for a second test. Every one of them. The reports ended abruptly after that. No final conclusions. No resolution notes. Just silence. I sat alone in the office, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights, and realized I was about to do the same thing they had done. Because if the road only appeared at night, then the only way to understand it was to go back after dark. I gathered 2 fresh GPS units, a portable signal analyzer, and a stack of blank diagnostic forms. Outside, the sky was already turning black, and somewhere beyond the fields of Black Hollow, a road that shouldn't exist might be waiting for another driver. At night, the road seemed to want me to see it. I returned to Black Hollow just after sunset. This time I went alone. The maintenance worker had suddenly developed family obligations, which was probably the smartest decision anyone made during this investigation. I loaded 2 freshly calibrated GPS units into the truck, along with a signal analyzer, a magnetic compass, and enough diagnostic equipment to satisfy state protocol. Officially, I was conducting a controlled test of a suspected mapping error. Unofficially, I was trying to determine whether I'd imagined half the things I'd seen the night before. The highway looked normal when I arrived. Fields stretched away under the fading light. Telephone poles stood exactly where they should. The fence line remained unchanged. For a few minutes, I actually felt relieved. Then the fog rolled in. Not from the fields, not from the highway. It appeared ahead of me in a dense gray wall, as if someone had unrolled it across the landscape. One moment visibility reached for miles. The next, the world ended 50 yards from my headlights. Both GPS units chimed simultaneously. Proceed on County Road 96. The route line appeared on both screens at the exact same moment. I checked the coordinates. Identical to the previous night. The road curved northeast through the fog, crossing terrain that still showed no physical roadway. I sat there listening to the engine idle. Every rational part of my brain insisted this was a software anomaly. Every instinct told me not to follow it. Then I heard footsteps, faint, crunching through gravel somewhere beyond the fog. I switched off the engine. The sound continued. Slow, deliberate steps moving parallel to the truck. I grabbed the flashlight and swept the beam across the roadside. Nothing. The footsteps stopped immediately. For several seconds, the silence felt absolute. Then another sound emerged. An engine. Distant at first, then gradually louder. It sounded like a car approaching along a paved road. The problem was that there was no road. The headlights never appeared. The engine noise grew until it seemed to be directly beside the truck. Then it faded into the fog behind me. I checked my mirrors. Empty highway. No taillights. No vehicle. The signal analyzer suddenly began chirping. Its display jumped wildly between frequencies that shouldn't have been present in the area. At the same time, the magnetic compass on the dashboard started turning. Not drifting, turning in complete circles. I picked it up, thinking vibration from the truck was causing the movement. The needle spun faster in my hand. My phone lost service. 1 bar, then none. The state radio crackled with static. I tried contacting dispatch and received only a burst of noise that almost sounded like a voice. The fog thickened until the fence line disappeared completely. According to the GPS, I was now sitting in the middle of County Road 96. According to my headlights, I was parked on the shoulder of Highway 17 facing empty gray mist. The contradiction became harder to ignore with each passing minute. I stepped out of the truck again. The air felt colder than before. Not winter cold, more like the temperature drop you notice when entering a basement that hasn't been opened in years. The fog moved around me in slow currents, and for the first time, I thought I could see the road. Not clearly, just hints of it. dark lines beneath the grass, a faint reflective stripe where no stripe should exist, the impression of pavement appearing and disappearing at the edge of my vision. When I looked directly at it, there was nothing. When I looked away, I could almost swear a roadway stretched into the fog. A chilling possibility occurred to me. What if the GPS wasn't wrong? What if the road existed in some way my eyes couldn't fully perceive? The thought should have sounded absurd. Instead, it explained too many things. The matching coordinates, the synchronized GPS readings, the engine sounds, the spinning compass, the feeling that something was moving just beyond visibility. I suddenly became aware of another sensation. Attention, the same feeling you get when someone is watching you from a dark room. The fog seemed full of unseen observers. I couldn't see anyone. I couldn't hear footsteps anymore. Yet the certainty remained. Something knew I was there. The GPS chimed again. Continue on County Road 96 for 2.8 miles. The route extended deeper into the fog. I looked at the empty field ahead of me and felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Because for the first time since this investigation began, I wasn't entirely sure the road was the illusion. And if that was true, then I needed to know whether anyone else had encountered roads that existed between the lines of reality. People warned me not to trace it, but I had to see. The morning after my nighttime test, I stopped treating County Road 96 like a software problem. I started treating it like a case file. State transportation archives weren't designed for mysteries. They were designed for accountability. Every maintenance request, signal interruption, and equipment malfunction generated paperwork. If the phantom road had appeared before, there would be records somewhere. I found them buried in a folder marked Navigation Anomalies, unresolved. Most entries were ordinary technical issues. Then I reached the reports connected to Black Hollow. The first involved a highway patrol vehicle. The GPS log showed the cruiser traveling 4.7 miles on County Road 96 at 2:31 a.m. The dash camera recorded nothing except an empty highway shoulder. The officer filed a complaint and requested a replacement unit. The second report was stranger. A maintenance truck activated its emergency beacon after the driver became disoriented. According to the GPS, he had left Highway 17 and entered County Road 96. According to his own statement, he never turned the wheel. Then came the missing vehicles. Officially, they were listed as unresolved disappearances unrelated to GPS operations. Unofficially, every one of them contained the same detail. Before contact was lost, the onboard navigation system recorded travel on County Road 96. One vehicle was recovered 3 days later. Abandoned. Engine running. Driver gone. The GPS route history ended at a coordinate that did not exist in any database. Another vehicle was never found at all. I sat at my desk staring at the reports while the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. What bothered me wasn't the disappearances themselves. It was how carefully the records avoided connecting them to the phantom road. The pattern was obvious. Someone had deliberately separated the incidents. I decided to call a former technician named Harris, who had transferred out of the department 2 years earlier. When I mentioned County Road 96, he went silent. "Who assigned you that investigation?" he asked. I told him no one had assigned it. I was following up on unresolved reports. Another pause. "Listen carefully," he said. "If they tell you to close the file, close it." "Why?" "Because people who keep digging don't stay on the project very long." I asked whether he meant disciplinary action. He gave a short laugh that contained no humor. "Some got warnings, some got transferred. One guy just quit after a night out there, said the road started answering him." Before I could ask what that meant, Harris ended the call. That afternoon, I checked personnel records. 3 employees connected to the Black Hollow reports had left the department within 18 months. 1 transferred to another state. 1 retired early. 1 resigned without explanation. None had documented a final conclusion. The deeper I looked, the more another pattern emerged. County Road 96 didn't appear continuously. It resurfaced when someone investigated it. A driver reports the road. A technician checks the location. The road appears again. The investigation expands. Additional sightings occur. Then the reports stop for months or years until someone new starts asking questions. I mapped the dates on a timeline. The clusters were impossible to ignore. Activity increased whenever attention focused on the road. That realization should have convinced me to walk away. Instead, it made me more determined. Professional duty had quietly become obsession. I kept telling myself I was protecting drivers from a dangerous navigation error. The truth was less noble. I wanted to know whether the road existed. Not on a screen. Not in a log file. In reality. As evening approached, I reviewed my own recordings from the previous night. One detail stood out immediately. Every time I hesitated near the phantom route, the GPS recalculated and extended the road farther ahead, almost as if it were encouraging me to continue. I replayed the audio twice. The synthesized voice sounded normal, but the timing felt deliberate. Outside my office window, the sky darkened over Black Hollow. I should have filed an interim report and turned the case over to a supervisor. That would have been the responsible thing to do. Instead, I packed the diagnostic equipment back into the truck. Because one question kept repeating in my head. If the road resurfaced when someone investigated it, what would happen if I followed it farther than anyone else had? An hour later, I was driving toward Black Hollow again, watching the GPS screen glow in the darkness. The phantom road had already returned, and this time it was waiting for me. I wasn't hallucinating. The road appeared step by step. I reached the Black Hollow turnoff at 1:58 a.m. The GPS unit mounted beside me was already displaying County Road 96. Unlike the previous nights, the route no longer stopped at the fence line. It extended farther into the darkness, curving through fields and ending at a location marked only with a gray square labeled Unknown Destination. For a long moment, I considered turning around. Then the device chimed. Proceed on County Road 96. The fog ahead shifted. Not drifted. Shifted. As if a curtain had been pulled aside. My headlights swept across the field and caught something they had not illuminated the night before. Pavement. A narrow strip of asphalt emerging from the grass. I slammed the brakes and stared through the windshield. The road had not been there 30 seconds earlier. I stepped out of the truck slowly. The asphalt looked old but intact. Faded yellow center lines ran into the fog. The edges disappeared beneath dead grass, giving the impression that the road had been buried for years and was only now resurfacing. I walked to the fence. The barbed wire was gone. The posts remained, but the wire itself hung loose on the ground as though someone had carefully removed it. Beyond it, County Road 96 stretched away into the mist. I touched the pavement. Cold. Real. A vehicle pulled up behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, and saw one of the maintenance workers from earlier in the week climbing out. Dispatch sent me to check on you, he said. Then he looked past me and stopped talking. We stood there in silence. The road existed. No GPS glitch could explain that. Tell me you're seeing this, he whispered. I'm seeing it. He shook his head. We should leave. Every sensible part of me agreed. Instead, I grabbed the signal analyzer and stepped onto the road. I need to document it. Document it from the truck, he snapped. But I was already walking. The farther I moved into the fog, the clearer the road became. Reflective markers appeared along the shoulders. A speed limit sign emerged from the mist, 45 mph, weathered but legible. Another marker bore the same carved symbol I'd seen in the field. The maintenance worker reluctantly followed a few steps behind. "This is insane," he muttered. "Roads don't just appear." I didn't answer, because something else had appeared. A silhouette stood near the tree line on the left side of the road. Tall, motionless. The fog obscured any details beyond the outline of a person. I raised my flashlight. The beam reached the figure and passed through empty mist. The silhouette vanished. The maintenance worker saw it too. His breath caught audibly. "Did you?" "Yeah." We kept moving. More shadows appeared as we advanced. Some stood beside the road. Others moved between the trees. None remained visible long enough to identify. Every time I tried to focus on one, the fog swallowed it. The road itself felt increasingly wrong. The pavement was smooth beneath my boots, but the air carried a faint vibration, almost like distant traffic. Several times I could have sworn headlights were approaching around the next bend. Nothing ever emerged. Then we reached a clearing. County Road 96 opened into a broad stretch of pavement surrounded by dense fog. Additional signs stood along the edges, county markers, directional arrows, even a faded green sign pointing toward places that did not appear on any map I'd ever seen. The maintenance worker stopped. "Nope," he said, "I'm done." He backed away several steps. "This isn't a road. This is something pretending to be one." His words should have sounded ridiculous. Instead, they matched exactly what I was beginning to think. I looked down at the GPS. The route continued deeper into the fog, another mile, then another. The unknown destination remained ahead, waiting somewhere beyond visibility. The device chimed softly. "Continue on County Road 96 for 1.7 miles. I realized my hands were shaking. Not from cold, from the growing certainty that the road had been revealing itself piece by piece, leading me farther each time I investigated. And now that I could finally see it, I understood the real danger. The road wasn't appearing by accident. It wanted me to keep following. We tried to ignore the GPS, and the road responded. The first rule seemed obvious: stay on the pavement. I didn't know it was a rule until I broke it. After reaching the clearing, I decided to test whether the road was somehow projecting itself onto the landscape. If the surrounding ground was normal, stepping off the pavement should have settled the question immediately. I moved toward the shoulder. The maintenance worker grabbed my arm. "Don't. I need to know what's out there." He looked into the fog and shook his head. "I don't think it wants you to." That sentence should have sent us both back to the truck. Instead, I stepped off the road. The ground vanished beneath my foot. For one horrifying instant, it felt as if I'd stepped into empty space. Then my boot hit solid earth several inches lower than expected, and a wave of dizziness crashed through me. The clearing disappeared. I was standing beside the abandoned barn, where the GPS had first claimed I'd reached my destination. The maintenance worker stood on the pavement 20 feet away, staring at me in shock. "How did you get over there?" he shouted. I looked back toward the road. The clearing was gone. In its place stretched the same narrow section of County Road 96 we'd entered minutes earlier. I climbed back onto the pavement immediately. The dizziness stopped. The clearing returned. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then the GPS chimed. Recalculating. The route line shifted slightly farther into the fog. That should have been enough. It was. Curiosity is a dangerous thing when you're terrified. It convinces you that one more test will finally make everything logical. I told myself the road was creating some kind of visual distortion. The only way to prove it was to push farther ahead. I got back into the truck. "We're driving the next mile," I said. The maintenance worker looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he climbed into the passenger seat and fastened his seatbelt with trembling hands. As soon as we accelerated, the compass spun wildly. The signal analyzer emitted a continuous tone. The GPS remained perfectly stable. 45 miles per hour. Exactly the posted limit. The road curved through dense fog, and unfamiliar signs began appearing along the shoulder. Some displayed town names that didn't exist in any county record. Others showed symbols instead of words. One sign simply read, "Return before dawn." It's not a road, it's a warning. The realization came somewhere between the third repeated landmark and the moment the GPS started giving commands instead of directions. I pulled the truck to a stop in the middle of County Road 96 and shut off the engine. The fog pressed against the windows. The dashboard lights flickered once, then steadied. Beside me, the maintenance worker stared at the dark pavement ahead as if expecting something to emerge from it. "Tell me what you're thinking," he said quietly. I looked down at the GPS. The route line no longer pointed toward a destination. It formed a loop around our current position. "I don't think this thing is trying to take us somewhere," I said. "I think it's trying to keep us somewhere." Saying the words out loud made everything click into place. The missing vehicles, the contradictory coordinates, the reports that ended without conclusions, the road appearing only when investigated. County Road 96 wasn't a hidden highway omitted from state maps. It existed outside ordinary cartography entirely. The GPS units weren't discovering it, they were being allowed to see it. I remembered the old reports describing drivers who returned disoriented, technicians who transferred suddenly, and the abandoned patrol car found with its engine still running. None of them had reported monsters or attacks. They reported confusion, lost time, an inability to explain where they had been. The road changed people. Maybe not physically, maybe not immediately, but every documented encounter left something behind. A fear of certain routes, a refusal to discuss Black Hollow, a compulsive need to avoid maps after dark. The maintenance worker broke the silence. "What if it's some kind of military test?" I almost wanted to believe him. But military tests don't make compasses spin in circles. They don't place road signs that repeat in impossible locations. They don't erase themselves from satellite imagery while appearing on state-issued GPS units. The more I thought about it, the more another possibility emerged. The road behaved like a boundary, a controlled path through something that shouldn't be crossed freely. Every anomaly fit that pattern. Step off the pavement and reality shifted. Drive too fast and the road looped back on itself. Ignore the GPS and the instruments failed. It was enforcing limits. Not because it wanted travelers lost, because it wanted them contained. The idea was absurd. It was also the only explanation that accounted for everything. A road that existed between mapped space and unmapped space. A corridor that appeared only under specific conditions. A route that monitored the people who found it. And if that was true, then the most terrifying question wasn't where County Road 96 led. It was what lay beyond the boundaries it was designed to protect. I suddenly understood why previous investigators had stopped digging. Not because they'd solved the mystery, but because they'd realized solving it might be impossible. Some knowledge isn't meant to become public infrastructure data. Some places don't belong in navigation systems. The GPS chimed softly. "Continue on County Road 96." I ignored it. The maintenance worker looked at me. "Can we leave now?" For the first time that night, my answer came without hesitation. Yes. I turned the truck around carefully. The moment the tires faced back toward Highway 17, the GPS fell silent. The compass needle stopped spinning. The signal analyzer's tone faded into normal static. The road was letting us go. That thought chilled me more than anything else. As we drove, the fog began thinning. The repeated landmarks vanished. The strange signs disappeared into the darkness behind us. Within minutes, County Road 96 looked like an ordinary stretch of pavement. Then the pavement itself began to fade. The yellow center lines broke apart. The asphalt dissolved into dead grass. The fence line reappeared exactly where it had been when I first arrived. By the time we reached the highway shoulder, there was no road at all. The GPS screen had gone blank. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at the empty field where County Road 96 had existed moments earlier. My professional instincts wanted to file a report, preserve the evidence, and continue the investigation. Another instinct, the one that had kept me alive that night, told me something different. Some roads should never be mapped. Some boundaries should remain unseen. And if County Road 96 was truly a warning, then the smartest thing I could do was listen to it and leave. I closed the investigation the next morning. Officially, I filed it as an unresolved navigation anomaly pending further analysis. The report included corrupted GPS data, inconsistent coordinates, and environmental interference affecting state equipment. I attached the diagnostic logs, the photographs of the strange markers, and the signal analyzer readings. My supervisor read the first page, signed the closure form, and told me not to spend any more departmental time on County Road 96. He didn't ask what I'd found. I didn't volunteer the truth. Some things are difficult to explain. Some things are impossible. The maintenance worker transferred to another district 3 weeks later. Before he left, he stopped by my office and set a small envelope on my desk. Inside was a single photograph he'd taken that night. The picture showed County Road 96 stretching into the fog. At first glance, it looked empty. Then I noticed the figure standing beside the speed limit sign. Tall, motionless, watching the truck. Neither of us remembered seeing it when the photo was taken. I locked the photograph in a filing cabinet and never showed it to anyone. Life eventually returned to normal. I repaired GPS units, updated map databases, and argued with outdated software just like before. The fluorescent lights still hummed overhead. The coffee was still terrible. The state still refused to replace equipment that should have been retired years earlier. But I changed. Every time a navigation device recalculates unexpectedly, I feel a knot tighten in my stomach. Every time I drive through rural fog after midnight, I find myself checking the shoulder for weathered signs carved with unfamiliar symbols. And I never ignore my instincts anymore. That's the part I want you to understand. I spent my entire career believing maps represented reality. If a road existed, it could be surveyed, measured, recorded. If it didn't appear in the database, then it wasn't there. County Road 96 taught me that certainty is a luxury. The world contains places that don't fit neatly into systems, boundaries that don't appear on official charts, paths that exist only under certain conditions, for certain people, at certain times. I don't know what lies beyond that road. I don't know whether it's a containment zone, a boundary between places, or something even stranger. I only know that it responded when we disobeyed, and it let us leave when we finally followed its rules. That should terrify you more than any ghost story, because it means the road wasn't random. It was aware. Over the years, I've quietly checked transportation reports from other states. Most are ordinary. A few mention phantom routes, impossible coordinates, or drivers who insist they followed roads that don't exist on any map. The details are different, but the pattern feels familiar enough that I stop reading before I convince myself it's connected. Knowledge has a cost. That's another lesson County Road 96 taught me. The people who dug too deeply didn't necessarily disappear. Some simply carried the road with them afterward. A fear of certain directions, a habit of avoiding GPS navigation after dark, a lingering certainty that something waits just beyond the edge of the mapped world. I understand them now. Sometimes the safest choice is to stop asking questions. If you're listening to this, you might think you investigate anyway. I probably would have said the same thing before Black Hollow. Curiosity feels noble when the unknown is still theoretical. It feels very different when a road appears where no road should be and starts giving you instructions. So here's my advice, from one person who followed the impossible farther than he should have. If your GPS ever tells you to turn onto a road that isn't there, don't assume the device is broken. Don't step out to take a closer look. Don't follow the route just because curiosity demands an answer. Check the map, check the signs, and if the road exists only on the screen, trust what your eyes are telling you. Because somewhere out there, beyond the highways and county routes and carefully surveyed intersections, there may still be roads that aren't meant to be found. Roads that appear only when someone starts looking for them. Roads that remember the people who follow them. And roads that don't appreciate being ignored. So if your GPS ever shows a road that doesn't exist, turn back. Not every path wants visitors.